All right, and we're on the air. Do you want to do the intro?
I'll do the intro.
Okay, and in 3, 2, 1.
In this week's episode of Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn that just like the Keatons, we're waiting, but we're waiting for Paul.
And in 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. I am one of your hosts, Scott Jones. With me is Corey Pepper. Corey, how's it going?
I'm great. It's funny. We're both here in Los Angeles. Usually we have a cross-country thing. Today we're sort of like Cross Valley.
We are Cross Valley.
Because you're in North Hollywood and I'm in Sherman Oaks.
Yep. Cross Valley.
Valley. And we're waiting. Paul's having technical issues today.
He's having technical issues. We're doing this at a very interesting time where both Paul and I are at work. And Paul is trying to open up the app on his phone because I think he's having to be covert about podcasting while on the job.
Well, he's having some issues trying to get online. So he may join us, or the next 30 minutes may pass so fast.
Yeah.
That we don't even get him in.
Oh, he has just texted us that he is watching live.
Okay, well, obviously I'll cut out all the nasty stuff I was going to say about him. Watch live when you're not here. I just talk shit about you for a whole half hour.
That's true, because I'm not watching live. It doesn't matter if I listen later.
I can get away with it without you. If I knew you were watching live, I would never do that because you would just text and insult me. So Paul, I'll be very nice to Paul. I understand.
Oh, that's awesome.
I do feel bad, however, that he's missing this episode because his vitriol would be so wonderful for us.
I know he was so pissed last night watching this episode. Oh, Paul says thank you for not insulting.
You're not talking shit about him.
Yeah. He was like, this fucking episode. I can't.
He was angry just watching it last night, and he was only 5 minutes in. Just imagine his feeling like we have right now, having finished the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all in caps. Mm-hmm. I had to watch the fucking thing and can't even talk about it.
I sympathize with that. Yeah, I do. I feel I would be pissed about this one too.
And I do have a whole bunch. I have a whole monologue event coming up.
Oh, good. This will fill time.
This is, of course, Heartstrings.
Part 2 of a
three-parter.
A three-parter for this. Has there ever? I don't know of any sitcom that has ever done a three-parter.
Oh, thank God! No, this went on for almost a month.
This is a month-long heart attack. Why they chose why would they choose this topic to do 3 parts on?
There are so many moments in this episode that could lead us into fabulous discussion. Paul didn't know what he wanted to talk about, but there's so much to talk about because it's so heavy-handed, this episode. They give us an opportunity to try and slather some more honey on this episode. It's so treaty.
Yeah. The one thing I did appreciate about this episode was the fact that they finally have said out loud, Alex is an egomaniac. It took Stephen Keaton having a heart attack for it to be said.
They did, but they did it in such a way that I got angry before he said it because he was acting like an egomaniac before Lauren analyzed him and told him that he was an egomaniac.
Yes.
So my question, of course, that I wrote down, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. Okay, well, let's start this off. Okay, so guys, if you're playing along at home, we are in season 7, episode 6, Heartstrings Part 2.
We open in the waiting room where we left off in the first episode. But the first thing I have to tell you, because I don't think you saw the first episode, is when we finished the first episode, Nick was not there. So we opened the second episode as if no time has gone on, except there had to have been time because Nick's there.
Right. Mallory had to call Nick. Hey, my dad's in the hospital. Nick had to come over. Yeah, my goal with this was how much can I fully understand and how quickly can I understand it without having to watch the first part.
Oh,
and 2 seconds, I kind of got it.
Nothing happened. No,
yeah.
Nothing happened, so you're fine.
Yeah. Okay.
With Alex trying to find his own pulse, he appears to be kind of hyperventilating and like upset that he can't find his pulse.
Yeah. At a time when his dad is
sick, right? Where he thinks his dad is dying. So once again, his dad is sick and in trouble, and Alex is more concerned with his own health, which is so typical of Alex. But I had to, in fact, I was going to tell Paul this story last week, but I'll tell you about a mutual friend of ours, David Beach.
Yes.
Who is very much like Alex in this case. After I had my heart attack, he couldn't hear me talk about my heart attack. Because if I talked about what happened to me, he would start to hyperventilate and say, I can't listen to this. I can't listen to this. And I said, but I don't understand why you can't listen to this. This has already happened to me, and I'm fine now. But you can't because you think that this is going to happen to you.
Right.
And you think this conversation is about you when it was really about me. I was talking about me, not about you.
That's strange.
And this is the same thing that sort of kind of happens to Alex. Hey, Alex, nobody's talking about you.
Yeah.
You're making this about you.
Right. But
and in reality, this is about your father. You should be worried about your father, not worried about finding a pulse or if your pulse is racing.
Yeah. Time and place. Like if these are legitimate concerns you have about your own health, hey, why don't we wait and, kind of suss this out with your dad to make sure his ticker's okay. And then we can talk about, you getting a physical and stuff like that.
And so they drop in on us a reminder of last week's episode when we meet Ruth.
Yeah.
A woman whose husband has had a heart attack and has sort of bonded a little bit with Elise.
Right.
And Myers, whose wife had a heart attack, and he just seems to be going to the commissary and getting fatter as this episode goes on.
What is going on in this town? Everybody's having heart attacks.
I know, and I don't know why Mr. Myers is here unless it pans out in episode 3, because so far he has served no purpose.
Yeah, I didn't know what that. Yeah, I did. I was like, oh, he's just there.
Now, Ruth not only serves a big purpose, but they are so heavy-handed they dropped an anvil on us in the
God. You knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. The minute Ruth's husband, Tony, goes back into ICU, the hand on the wall.
He's a god. Tony's dead. Tony's dead.
Time. It's just, oh, sweet God. No one's panicking. I'm sure it's a very common thing.
I'm sure. Yeah. Say goodbye to Tony, folks. Haven't met him. Sure, he was nice, but he's not going to be around.
and after we meet Ruth and Mr. Myers, and we hear about Tony going back in, and Alex is hyperventilating, we get Mallory with her very serious "I love Dad" speech. Now, I commented on this last week too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why these people, and I do because it's television, why they feel the need to verbalize their love for their father to each other. Isn't it understood at this point?
Yeah, especially in this family. Like, this is a very tight-knit, expressive family. To have them talk about "I love Dad so much," and I'm gonna, what if Dad,
that would be said to me in a family that is emotionally constipated and expresses love for each other.
Right.
If that's your family, if you're a cold family that's neither physically affectionate nor verbally affectionate with each other,
right?
But this is not true of the Keatons. I, as an audience member, don't need to be told that Mallory loves her father. It's very clear to me Mallory loves her father.
Absolutely.
And for Mallory to tell her brother that she loves her father, that's sort of silly because we know Alex loves his father, Mallory loves the father, Jennifer loves her father. Everybody loves Stephen Keaton. So
yeah, there's no question about it's been said many times. Paul would like to point out there are so many tears this episode, mostly coming from us, right?
Yeah, none from me.
God. Yeah, this was just what I love. Going back to Ruth a little bit too is I think at one point of how heavy-handed this is that at one point Ruth even says, "Oh yeah, it's amazing what you can do, with a bypass after you get a bypass. It's incredible. Tony's going to be able to do all those things."
Right. And then Alex and Mallory both can't seem to say the word dead or dying or if that dies.
Right.
Do that. It's like the C word for cancer, let's call it the C word.
Right.
I don't understand people who can't say the word. It's like, I'm sorry, did your father die? Oh, yes, he passed away. He died.
Yeah, he died. Yeah.
People die. Everybody dies. It's okay. You can say it.
It's a part of life.
Exactly. It's the end part, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, pass away always seems like such a weird term.
It does.
Pass away. No. Like, let's get a finale to this. You're dead. You're dead. End game. That's it.
And Alex just seems to be more worried about him, like the gene pool. He's worried about the genes. That's an appropriate time to worry about whether you've passed on the genes to have a bad heart.
Right. He's worried that he has a bad heart.
Not about his father who's undergoing surgery right now.
Right, which is really strange. And this is also where we have Mallory finally say, "You got the egomaniac gene." Someone has. I'm kind of glad it's Mallory.
Yeah. And then right after that, baby shrink Lauren shows up just to crap at us. She cares so deeply, and she realizes immediately that Alex is in a bad spot, so she has him lie down.
Yeah.
Analyze him while he's lying down.
We're doing some makeshift therapy here in the waiting room.
Paul says Michael J. Fox and Courtney Cox were gorgeous. Does he mean? Well, there was something going on with Michael J. Fox's hair in this episode for sure.
I personally didn't like it.
It was a little blow dried.
Yeah,
it was a little helmety to me.
Yeah. Courtney Cox, I'll give him. I like her hair. She looked nice.
She did look nice in this episode.
Yeah.
And she's analyzing him, and she calls him on the fact that he's a self-centered narcissist.
Right. It took them 7 seasons, but they did it, guys.
Mallory calls him on being an egocentric narcissist, and Lauren calls him on just being a narcissist.
Right.
But she says, like, she calls him a narcissist, and then in the very next breath says, "Yeah, but I love you anyway." And I want to know why. That's my question. If you met somebody who is a total and complete narcissist,
right?
I wonder how they are capable of being in a relationship and what that other person has to go through to be in a relationship with them when that person they're in love with is so narcissistic.
Yeah, if there is someone you truly believe is a total narcissist, like clinically a narcissist, and you still love them, I worry about that person.
Yes, exactly. I question what's with you.
You have some serious
willing to go through life without anybody giving you anything? What does that tell me about you? That you have no needs?
You got some serious self-esteem.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You have problems that you don't require anything in return.
Right. And in fact, want to enable someone that's not feed them, give them the love.
It's so twisted, and I just don't buy it that Lauren is that damaged. That I just don't buy that she's able to give that much love to him and really has asked for nothing in return.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
You're a woman. I mean, why? I don't understand it. And we go right from the analysis into a flashback scene.
Oh, this flashback
that
scene
makes no sense.
No.
for a variety of reasons. It just makes no sense.
Okay, first off, let's talk about like how they're talking to each other watching this baseball game. So the setup is Steven and Alex are sitting watching the Tigers baseball game. They're playing the San Diego Padres. The way they sound drunk.
Well, my initial question is, how does a fan in Columbus, Ohio, become a passionate fan of the Detroit Tigers?
That's true.
None of them are from Michigan.
Nope.
They're between two baseball teams. We've seen their passion for the Cincinnati Reds before.
Oh, which would make more sense.
Or the Cleveland Indians. They're in between both.
Right?
I don't understand how all of a sudden they're huge. I mean, enough Tiger fans so that he's sitting there with a fucking foam finger. Who buys a foam finger to begin with? And who would have a Detroit Tigers foam finger in Columbus, Ohio?
It makes no sense.
And once again, we're with Alex, the passionate sports fan.
Yes, we go back to our sports.
And you may be unaware of this. In last week's episode, and Paul will definitely attest to this, they finally have a line. Mr. Myers says to him in the waiting room something about, how about those Cleveland Browns?
Oh.
And Alex's reaction to it was, I'm not really much of a sports fan.
Holy shit.
And Paul and I went bananas last week because we have always said he's not much of a sports fan, and yet they always keep on trying to introduce sports.
Yes.
So 1 week, he's not much of a sports fan, and then the next week they have a flashback of him with a fucking foam finger rooting for the Detroit Tigers. It makes no sense.
They're unraveling everything in these past two episodes. The sports fans, the narcissism, this is all coming unglued, Corey. Okay, so Paul has said, Paul makes a good point. He's saying the writers were painted into a corner as to who was in the World Series a few years before.
Well, the Padres and the Tigers did play each other in the World Series.
Right, like the Indians famously suck, so they had to find something.
Right, but I don't understand. Since it was a flashback, why didn't they go back to the Big Red Machine? I mean, Cincinnati won.
Yeah, that's true.
3 out of 4 championships. So Cincinnati had a whole bunch of world championship teams.
Yeah.
It's true that the Indians have not won a world championship in years.
Right.
40s.
Right.
That is true. So they didn't have anything. I still wonder, why weren't they rooting for the Padres? Why did they decide to root? Why? Because it's a Midwestern team? It just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. There's so many things they could have done.
And also, if they were a Cincinnati Reds fan, it's more likely they would be a National League fan and not an American League fan. It's just the way it works in baseball. Is if you're a fan of a specific team, if you're a Yankee fan, you're an American League fan. You don't flip back and forth between the American League and the National League usually.
Right.
You follow that league because you're interested in the action of that team that you're a fan of. So if they were Reds fans, they would naturally follow the National League. I don't know anybody who flips over to Detroit just because they're 1,000 miles closer than San Diego would be. It just doesn't make sense. He even makes hey, step on your water wings, Padres. It makes like a San Diego dig joke.
Yeah.
Awful.
Paul is like, so much sports talk.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. We'll talk about oligarchies in a moment.
So the Russian oligarchy right now in the investigation against Trump. So
they have this father-son bonding flashback scene of watching the World Series together. And in the he is laughing at that though.
The talk of all this, they sound drunk talking to each other. Hey, come on, Dad Reno, to get another hot doggy.
Exactly. Then Steven gets up and ends up breaking shit
and doesn't care.
No,
he's not like, oops. He's like, yeah, I broke the lab. Gonna get another hot dog.
And then the phone rings.
Mm-hmm.
Steven gets awfully quiet.
Oh. Gut punch.
Apparently, Rob was on the phone, his brother.
Yes.
Divorced or perhaps not divorced at this time. I can't figure out the timeline.
I think they're having issues.
And Rob called to inform Steven that their father, who he competed with during season 1, his father died of a heart attack.
Yes.
And Stephen is, it is a gut punch. Stephen is blown away, and Alex is equally blown away that Grandpa died. And they both sit there sort of kind of holding in tears until Stephen then says, "Oh, Alex, it's okay. You can cry."
Right.
And then they both sort of hold each other and cry together in a maudlin scene that was totally unnecessary.
Yeah, it's just it's just sappy. And
Paul is also letting us know that during the scene, Stephen was man-spreading on the couch.
that should be noticed.
He was spreading.
Yes, he was.
One in that episode, Jake told Stephen that he was dying, so Jake predicted his heart attack. Oh
wow! In season 1, in that episode, Jake told Stephen.
Jake is the father.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did tell Stephen, "Yeah, I'm dying, Stephen."
Oh,
wait a second. If he would, so we believed in season 1 that he was dying of a cancer,
and then he died of a heart attack earlier than that.
Oh my! What the?
I think the writers got lazy again and screwed up their own timeline.
They screwed up their own timeline because it was very clear. He's like, "I don't have much time left."
That was what
everything indicating cancer.
Yeah. It was about Stephen and his father bonding before he died.
Right.
So they sort of killed the father off twice. So he I guess he didn't have cancer, or he lived long enough to die of a heart attack.
He had cancer, then had a heart attack at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God! Wow!
And we fade out of this scene, and we fade into the hospital scene. And then
I think we should talk about how we fade out of this. Isn't this is where Elise says, "Let's just all sit and wait."
Is that what she says? Do we hear a voice at the end of the hugging scene?
No, it's just because this is what Paul was raving about last night. She's like, "This is the worst." He was like, "This is the worst act out."
But Elise isn't in the scene. See, we're
okay? So we come back. Well, we come back from the flashback, and we are back in the waiting room, and.
Right. And don't we have her? We first have her saying something about Skippy called, or Skippy's going to come over. I don't know why they even mentioned Skippy unless he's in episode 3.
Yeah, where has Skippy been this season?
I don't know. So he mentioned some bullshit about Skippy.
Yeah,
and then they and then Mrs. Hobart gets called in by the doctor to tell her that Tony passed away.
Yeah, and it's this very cliche fainting, falling into the doctor's arms, and then they cut right away to, "Okay, well, I guess this is goodbye. You're gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine."
And is this where at the end of the scene she goes, "Let's just go sit and wait"?
I think so, but we need a commercial break anyway, so let's just sit quietly and wait. And we're back.
Jeez, I wish we didn't have to come back. I wish they didn't have to come back too.
I wish none of us had to come back.
This is just awful. So we at the top of Act 2, we now see Mrs. Hobart. Now she's falling apart. She's a mess. She's a complete total mess.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, it's the quietest hospital I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, it is extremely quiet. Yes,
it's as if nobody gets sick there. It's like, wow, it's a cardiac unit. Everybody has.
It's a very calm hospital.
It's really calm. There's like nobody there other than Mr. Myers and Ruth. There's nobody else in the waiting room.
No.
And so we're in quiet hospital, and Elise starts to lose it. She starts to lose it now that Tony's dead. Because now it's going to touch us home that maybe Stephen will die. Maybe
it's getting real.
Right. So there's some weird-ass joke about ketchup growing on trees, about some memory of Dad. And Mallory says, "Hey, Dad, ketchup doesn't grow on trees." And then we have some really bad Nick dumb jokes.
Right. This is where I kind of was like tuning out a little bit. I had to get up and get some more coffee. I was just like, what is going on? Like, it's just, again, this episode is just people sitting around in a waiting room.
Andy announces that he finally found his pulse.
Yeah, there's been a big ongoing joke about Andy trying to find his pulse, and Nick is like, "We're going to take Andy down to get a milkshake to celebrate him finding his pulse.
And then Elise has perhaps the heaviest scene I've seen in the show in a very long time, where she's losing her shit and she's panic stricken, and she starts talking to Alex about what happens if Steven doesn't survive the operation. And she announces that if he doesn't survive, she's going to have to turn to Alex and depend upon Alex for help, which is why I wrote the word down, for fuck's sake, why? Why would you depend upon your 22-year-old child who exhibited no signs of
Yeah, that's true. This is true.
He's a total sociopath narcissist. Why would you turn to him to help you? He's more likely to help himself than he is to help you.
Yeah.
And then Elise continues saying a couple of the dumbest lines that have ever been uttered on television, and I had to write them down. One of them is, you guys don't know how close we are.
I didn't get that at all.
Don't know how much we love each other. Now, unfortunately, we have watched 125 episodes of this hunk of duty. Yeah. I do know how close they are. I do know how much they love each other, and I hate this fucking show, so I don't care.
And writers, that's kind of the crux of this show, is how much this family loves each other. That's kind of what keeps it together.
That's almost like on Modern Family saying, I can't believe how many different types of people are in this family.
You have no idea how diverse our family is.
Yes. No, I do have an idea. That's what the show's been about.
It's so ridiculous.
About your family and how much you love each other. You don't need to tell me that.
Yeah. I just want to point out, Paul has been texting us about all the things Tony Hobart never got to see.
I think we should read. These are the things that poor Ruth's husband, Tony Hobart, never experienced because he died at Quiet Hospital. Tony Hobart never saw the fall of the Berlin Wall. Tony Hobart never heard Smells Like Teen Spirit. Tony Hobart never saw any Iraq wars. He's at least given us a few different options on different wars. Tony Hobart never experienced that summer of ska in 1990.
That was a good time. That was a good time.
Tony Hobart has never heard a podcast, and Tony Hobart never saw the white Bronco chase. Wow, that's so sad for Tony Hobart.
Yeah, is it?
But then Elise continues, and she says things like, "If I lost him, I don't know what I would do if I lost him."
I don't know. I'm not buying this.
Also, I'm going to also tell you something else. This is another thing. Parents have a tendency to protect children.
Yes.
You don't have a tendency to, even your adult children, you don't have a tendency to cry into their arms. Maybe if you did, I don't think you would put pressure on a child like, wow, if dad dies, Alex, you're going to be the man in the family. Well, that's stupid. He's 22 and he should be living outside of the home anyway.
Right. Exactly. And that's something for him to come to his own terms of how he's going to help the family.
And this ridiculous fucking scene with the words, "You're my mommy."
What is with the mommy thing?
I want to
really weird.
Up. I am nauseous. He should stop calling her his mommy. He's 22 and an asshole.
Yeah, and I like to point out this whole mommy thing is going to come into play with the season finale, the series finale.
Really?
Yeah. But then we have this pointless flashback. I don't know what the purpose of this goddamn flashback was.
Well, nor do I, Scott. And that's why this is where I wrote down. And I'll read what I wrote down.
Oh, please.
This show sucks. I can't believe you two didn't know that when you asked me to watch 120 episodes. I hate you both. I can't believe you guys thought this was good even when you were small children. Watch this scene. This absolutely my fucking hatred for Family Ties. First of all, that's the ugliest little Alex Keaton baby that they could have cast.
It is ugly. It is an ugly baby.
Ugly shit. Saying, "Mommy, Mommy, mommy,
It's
mommy.
it's first of all, Corey, we'll never be able to apologize enough for dragging you.
That's true. I understand that. We can move on. You're right.
Yeah.
Never.
Second of all, the only good thing I can say about this scene is I actually thought the people they cast for younger Elise and Steve were actually very well appropriate.
You know what? Paul said the same thing last week. He loved them. He thought they were terrifically cast.
Yeah, Paul was surprised. I was like, Scott and I were children. What did adults think of this show?
Yeah, you guys were. You're right. You guys were like kids. You were sitting with your parents watching.
It was easy for us to laugh at this.
Wow. And I got to tell you, I really didn't write any more notes the entire show.
I've stopped writing notes.
I stopped because after this flashback, which goes on way too long, and really the only point of this flashback is the fact that Alex says the words "mommy" and "money."
Yeah, and it's bad. And the ADR. Oh my God.
Oh,
oh, primo ADR. The mouth is not even moving, and they try.
saying "mommy" over and over again.
Oh my God.
And I'll tell you, if I closed my eyes and listened to Stephen and Elise, I thought vocally they sounded very close to.
There was a rhythm to how they were speaking. Like it was like the actors studied them a little bit.
Yeah, it's as if they studied them a little bit and they tried. I'll give the actors credit for making it work, because the scene didn't work, and we go straight from this scene into sort of a weird ass montage between the waiting room and the operating room.
This freaked me out. This was like something off Grey's Anatomy, like the cut between the narration of Nick. This is what a drama show is today, and they're doing this in a 1980s sitcom. So you have Nick narrating how things are going to be okay. But the close-up is on Elise in the waiting room. While that's going on, it cuts into Stephen on the operating table out of nowhere, which was really jarring. And so it's this quick cut between the operating and Nick hearing Nick say to Elise that everything's going to be okay. I was like, this is what the climax scene of a Grey's Anatomy episode is like. It was weird.
It was very weird, and they were trying to build tension, and they couldn't get any, and it was
I want to and this was directed by your buddy Sam Weisenstein, yeah.
Yes, he did.
It's like I gotta give him credit. It's like he was like, we're gonna try something ballsy this episode. We're gonna do something that hasn't been done on a sitcom before.
And Paul is right. They do upgrade him during this moment.
Oh yeah, we should point that out because we talked about it earlier. He goes from a single bypass to a quadruple bypass, which really freaks Elise out.
And by the way, I just want to say, I don't think there's more danger in performing if you're going to cut open the chest.
Right.
That's the dangerous thing, is sawing open the sternum and removing and putting someone on a heart-lung machine, which you have to do for a single bypass or a quadruple or a quintuple bypass. It makes no difference.
Right. It's just a little bit more cleaning that you're doing. That's it.
They're just spending more time replumbing your heart. That's all they're doing.
Right.
So it doesn't in and of itself make it more complicated or make it more likely that there would be complications from it.
Right.
So the seriousness that they add, the we're raising the stakes at the end of this episode falls on deaf ears.
I thought the same thing. I was going to ask you about that. I was like, is this actually is there more risk involved? Because it doesn't seem like there would be.
Maybe in 1988 there was, but nowadays, or certainly when I had mine 15 years ago, which was 2002. Yes. There was none. So from 88 to 2002, that's still 12 years. I mean, there's a lot of, in cardiac care, there was a lot of improvements made. Right. But it was sort of strange that all of a sudden they felt they were leaving us with this real dangerous cliffhanger. Wow, he needs 4 bypasses.
Yeah. Same thing's still happening.
Same difference. And I don't even think it's going to take that much more time.
No.
They would just have that many more surgeons working. So you work on this artery, I'll work on this artery.
Right.
This is on the heart-lung machine at the time anyway, so it makes no difference.
Right. Right.
And then that's where they sort of leave us, with us wondering. I guess Steven is somewhere between life and death and having quadruple bypass.
Another goddamn cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet Jesus. Oh. Well, hopefully all three of us can be here together for the third and final installment of this epic heartstrings trilogy. That's so. It's like a writer was in the room going, "I want to do a trilogy about Steven having a heart attack." It's god awful. Well, Corey, I'm glad you've been part of this podcast, and we haven't given you a heart attack.
No, not at all. It makes me healthier and stronger. I refuse to have one now because I don't want to be like Stephen Keaton.
Paul makes a good point here as we wrap up. I still think Steven in heaven would have been a better episode. Actually, that would have been great. Yeah. Steven looking down on everything would have been awesome.
And it could have been another clip show then.
Oh, yeah, it could have been. Well, Paul, we missed you. We're sorry you couldn't get into the conversation today, but we'll be back next week for the third and final installment of Heartstrings. So that wraps it up for us, guys. For questions and comments, be sure to write us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. And for updates, you can follow us at QTWFT on Twitter. We're each also on Twitter. I'm at Follow Jones.
I'm at Corpep, and Paul's at Paul Packler.
We got it right this time. I know. And be sure to follow our Facebook page. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is an online conglomerate of geek media providing its readers with daily reviews and insights into the geek pop culture spectrum. They're also an independent publisher, so check out everything they do with their amazing artists. We'd like to thank Perry Adams, who beautifully performs the theme song Without Us. Check out Perry's music at perryadams.com. We'd like to thank Brian Dillon, Fanbase Press's president, who also edits our show. And lastly, Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, who designed our logo. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Sha-la-la-la.
Bye.